Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar and Korra video. This is going to be my 2018 preview video for Avatar and Korra. So I'm going to be covering basically what to expect in 2018 in terms of story content, the comics, and also in terms of 2018 and merchandise. So I'll be covering what's confirmed, and then I'll be doing a little bit of speculation along the way as to what I also expect could happen this year. I did one of these videos last year, and while I think a lot of my predictions were still good, a lot of delays happened this year, which led to less books coming out than we expected. A lot of merchandise stuff that we had hoped for didn't turn out to be as big as expected. So obviously stuff can happen, and the obviously previews before the year even starts, obviously not all of them are going to turn out to be true. So let's jump in with the story content. And basically, unless something pretty big happens next year, the only story content we're going to be getting next year is going to come from the comics from Dark Horse Comics. And the interesting thing is going to be that, obviously this year we are going to be getting confirmed books. Next up, coming in January, is going to be Turf Wars Part 2. We also know we're confirmed to be getting Turf Wars Part 3. And then we also know there's going to be a Korra free comic in May, in addition to the start of the next Avatar comic series, what is right now pretty much just referred to as the 2018 Avatar comic, with the new creative team of Peter Wortman on art and Faith Erin Hicks as the writer. So the big question, I suppose, is that, okay, confirmed books right now are the two Turf Wars, the free comic, and then one part of the, as of yet, not fully announced 2018 Avatar comic. What can we really expect beyond that? I think immediately one thing you can add on is that there will be a hardcover library edition for Legend of Korra Turf Wars. By the time Part 3 comes out, which isn't like crazy far into the year, there will be enough time left in the year for a hardcover collected edition to be released. And that's going to be fun to see obviously who does the cover. Heather Campbell has done the covers for each individual part of Turf Wars, but will she be doing the cover for the library edition, or will they actually allow Irene Coe, the interior artist, to do the cover for the hardcover edition? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And then, of course, we'll obviously have to see what the special editions type stuff is that comes in that book. The annotations, if they do that again. And just in general, what a Korra library edition looks like compared to the Avatar books. So that'll be fun. That's an almost kind of lock, a guarantee. I'd be really shocked if they just didn't do it, or if they announce it, but it's not coming out in 2018. So there's that. Then, the other question is, of course, what's the, I suppose, expected stuff for the Avatar comic? This is where it's really hard to speculate on, because as far as we're aware, the announcement of the new Avatar comic was very early in production. It didn't really feel like there was much of anything completely in place at the time where we heard about this, and it still feels like that's more or less the same way. I do suspect we'll get in the first couple of months of 2018 the full reveal about what the title is. We'll see a cover and stuff like that, and we'll start to hear a little bit about what it's actually going to be about. But as for how many of the books we can expect this year, that's, I think, the big question that's really going to determine how good the year is. Because if there's one book and it comes out right at the end of the year, it's like, cool, but that's like, oh wow, you announced that book really, really early. Why was there such a big delay between the end of North and South and announcing this book? The dream, of course, would be that we get at least two of the parts of the book this year, in that if there was some way that, like, the first Avatar comic came out in, like, June, July, August, and then they somehow managed to squeeze the second part of that series in right at the end of the year. That would be really cool, because then we'd get 4 main comics and then the free comic in the year, plus the hardcover for Turf Wars. But I would not go as far as to say I don't think there's any way that all 3 parts of this book can come out this year. And realistic expectations would be that I think we're only going to get one part of the new Avatar comic this year, we'll probably hear about like the cover and stuff like that for part 2 and 3 in 2018, but I don't think we'll see the release of any of those books until 2019. So that's the prediction right now, locked in stone more or less, is that Turf Wars Part 2, Turf Wars Part 3, Turf Wars hardcover, Korra free comic of the little story with Korra and Milo going after the animals that was just announced, and then the first part of the new Avatar comic. The other thing that could change this is that we know that come the end of Turf Wars, Irene Coe is not going to be doing more Korra comics. Unless she's changed her mind since some of her recent comments, this seems to be a very set in stone thing, that we are going to be in need of a new Korra artist once Turf Wars is done. And it obviously begs the question of one of the big pieces of news we'll be expecting in 2018 is going to be what is next for Korra comics. I can't see them just stopping with Turf Wars, because it feels like there is a popularity around Turf Wars, and it also feels like, I think for most people who maybe aren't particularly happy with Turf Wars so far, that, you know, announcing that you're continuing Korra comics immediately opens up the doors to cover a lot more ground, and that it's not all like everything's on Turf Wars. We know that we're going to get time to explore other stuff, the likes of, you know, what's going on with Kuvira, that sort of stuff. So the sooner they announce that, the better. And I would hope that they have already begun searching and they kind of have that locked in place and they're just waiting for most of the Turf Wars stuff to be done, and then they'll announce what the next Korra comic series is. Because I don't think that they could, I don't think they should do what they did with Avatar comics, which is wait so long without saying anything before announcing what your new creative team is and that comics are continuing. They need to get ahead of this and really make it super clear from the get-go. Korra comics will continue. We have a plan. Don't worry. There might be a little bit of a delay with a new artist coming on board, but we are giving you more Korra comics. That's what they need to do in this year, is just, as an overall, I think, kind of New Year's resolution for Dark Horse, it should be to just communicate better with the fan base, present what your roadmap is, your overall idea for the comics a little bit better. Don't just be like, okay, here's the new Avatar comic, here's the new Korra comic. Tell us, is there a plan for these comics? Are you building towards something in the future? Is there anything more that you're trying to do with the comics beyond just kind of almost endlessly just tell stories in the universe with these characters? Or do you have a goal for what's going on? Because in terms of speculation that has no basis, what I suppose the dream would be is that one thing they also do in the year would be that they announce other comics. And I talked about this in discussion videos over the course of 2017, and that is that I want them to break out of the format that they have right now, which is that outside of the free comics, the only way we seem to be able to get Avatar story content is through these 3-part comic series. Each part is 72 pages long, and that's the only way we can tell a story. I think we need to start, opening things up a little bit more. Single issue comics telling a one-shot story, 2, 3, 4, 5 issue miniseries comics telling a story about this, an ongoing series of monthly comics focusing on this, telling their own unique stories, that you don't have to link absolutely everything into Korra or Avatar. It's a universe that is big enough for Dark Horse to actually have their own kind of comic-based universe as well. And I don't know if they'll go as far as to start that, but just the basic idea of just opening it up so that we're not just always waiting, we're not always stuck in this format, that we can occasionally throughout the year get just, there's a one-shot issue that's out this month. Let's read that, discuss it, analyze it. It's just one thing. We don't have to wait like 8 to 10 months between the start and finish of the series to actually discuss it in full. It's just there and it's in place. Just stuff like that that's a little bit more regular. Obviously keep the 3-part comic series as your main thing, but I'd love for them to do more. Because it feels like right now we're just kind of limited in the types of stories that we can get stuck in this 3-part comic series. It doesn't feel like there's any option to tell, say, like an Iroh backstory style story. It even feels like the Azula story, unless they heavily involve like Zuko and have an Aang plot and stuff like that, it feels like it almost feels like the comics can't just tell like a super heavy Azula focused story. Obviously that one's a little bit more up in the air, but the likes of an Iroh story where most of his backstory like involves characters that we sort of know, but they're not the main characters. Like Zuko would not be or pretty much a main character in Iroh's backstory. And it's the same with a lot of anything else. Of just I don't really see them ever announcing a 3-part comic series based on this or that. That the only way we're going to get comics in this format is if they heavily involve Aang and the crew going forward. So that's my kind of hopes and dreams for things going forward. And just in general, Dark Horse, the way that they can improve going into 2018 is to just announce kind of, I think, more books, announce that you're kind of doing more, expanding more, and you're giving the fans what they want. What they've presented to us so far has been good, and I think the announced books for 2018 look good on paper already. But you could make the year really good. You could really make 2018 this turning point for the fandom where it feels like we're getting a lot of books going forward. But obviously that was the hope last year, and this year felt very weak in terms of comics. So I don't know. I think it should be fairly easy for this for next year to kind of beat out this year, but it's Dark Horse we're dealing with here, so we'll see what happens. So that's the story content. As I said, it's all Dark Horse. I'd be shocked if story content really came from anywhere else. So we'll move into merchandise from here, and definitely going into merchandise, this is where it's a little bit more all over the place. It's one company doing a thing here, one company who's done merchandise in the past but hasn't announced anything for a very long time, and it's just, that's the situation that we're in. So I'll start off with Mondo, the company Mondo, who are known for their statues, and they obviously announced a Korra statue, which you can see on screen here. And this was announced a while ago. They fully went into details about it at, I think, San Diego Comic-Con. And then I think at New York Comic-Con they revealed the full details about it, in that pre-orders are going to go live for this in February. And then it's going to be shipping out in Q3 of this year, which is the third quarter of the year. They haven't released a suggested retail price, but based on what their other stuff is, this statue, we basically know for sure this is going to be one of, if not the most expensive pieces of Avatar or Korra merchandise. This thing is probably going to be at least $200, if not more. Like I could absolutely see this being like $350. Again, I don't think we know the full size, weight, that sort of thing, but you know, don't expect this to be less than $150. This is going to be somewhere between $150 and $300, I think. Could be more. I don't think it will be less. It's going to be very limited in supply, so you're going to have to get your pre-orders in the second they go live, and just keep an eye out for people who are posting updates on when the pre-orders for this goes live. So if you want this really high-end, high-quality piece of merchandise that's going to be one of the most kind of well-made pieces of merchandise, it's going to be something you have to keep your eye on in the first couple of months of next year. So that's the Mondo statue. I don't know if they've announced any other merchandise or if they will do anything more after this. Kind of feels like no, in that based on what we know about it, this thing's been in planning stages for years, a really long time, and it's only now just being released. So don't expect anything new really soon coming. So that's that. And I think after that it's like, okay, next we'll move on to IDW Games. And this is where it gets a bit interesting, in that we had the Kickstarter, obviously last year, a couple of months ago. This year, going into 2018, we're going to see the release, of course, of what the Kickstarter was funded with, and that is the IDW Pro Bending Arena game. That is going to be released, the exclusive edition for Kickstarter backers, and then we will also see a retail release of the basic version of the set, plus they'll be putting the expansions out as separate things as well. So that's going to be something to look out for. I think it's more towards the middle of the year. I think it's something like between March and like June or July. I don't know the specific details, but you can check the Kickstarter to find out details about the game and when it will be out at retail. You will absolutely know during the year when exactly it's coming out. So if you didn't get a chance to back the Kickstarter, there is a chance to at least get the basic version of the game once it comes out. And by all accounts, I think they probably will be releasing a lot of the extra figures that were the kind of stuff they revealed over the course of the campaign as expansions, but I'm not too sure on that. With them, the interesting thing is that they announced with their deal that they will be doing other Avatar and Korra games. So I think we can expect probably towards the end of the year them to put up a Kickstarter for their second tabletop game for Avatar and Korra. I think people probably would like an Avatar one this time. You started off with a Korra one. It would make sense to do an Avatar one next. And I think just the quality of their campaign in terms of how they did it with the reveals, it kept people interested. There was some new information with regards to team names that came out. That could be very interesting depending on what they decide to cover with the next game. But that's something to look out for. If you like tabletop games, IDW Games will be making more Avatar and Korra games. So that's them. After that, we have Zen Monkey Studios, who were in a way kind of saved merchandise in 2017 right at the end of the year with not just the 7 pins that they released this year and that are actually available to buy, but also just with their communication with the fans, how they went about announcing future pins and future ideas for pins. It really felt like this is a company that we should care about, that care about the fans, and we're going to get the characters that we want from this company. And for sure, I think this is going to be one of the most interesting companies to follow in 2018 for Avatar and Korra merchandise, because it feels like they're going all in on Korra. And if there's any sort of, in any way, popular character that you like, we probably will see a pin for them at some point. Maybe you can't really guarantee it for 2018, but it feels like they're going to cover most of the main characters in this. In that they're already responding to like fan feedback of like Suki was kind of left out of the initial like Team Avatar wave. People said that to them. They immediately designed a Suki pin and got it confirmed. And that's going to be seemingly one of the first pins coming out next year, or something like that. So that's the sort of kind of company we're dealing with that's going to actually like give the fans what they want. So we already know of like a good amount of concept arts that they have for pins. I think we already have a bunch of them confirmed. There's going to be another Aang. There's going to be a Toph, a Katara, a Zuko, a Sokka. There's going to be a Suki. Wan, I think, has been confirmed. Milo's been confirmed. Lin and Sue on like a kind of pin set has been confirmed. And then I think there's even designs for like other Sokka pins that are more kind of comedy, like Cactus Juice type stuff focused, and so on. And I think they're aware of like the other fan favorite characters that are still out there. I think they've got a lot of like people asking for Rava and Vatu, and I think they would fit well as pins, so they'll probably be done at some point. The Korra villains, of course, from all of the seasons, I think are something that they probably will do eventually. And then there's other characters like Azula. Azula would probably be like, now of the characters they haven't fully announced just yet, Azula I think is the big character that like you have to do her next. Like you don't realize just how popular of a character she is, and a good pin design for Azula is going to sell really well. So stuff like that is going to be a huge thing to look out for next year, because like even this year, like this company just like in a way announced they were doing pins. Here's a bunch of them that are on sale already, and then here's like designs for like 20 or 30 pins coming out in the future, and we plan to do more. And it's just like, okay. The only thing is just like okay, not everyone's interested in pins, but still they're just small, cheapish, collectible things, and that's exactly what we need. Because as I'll talk about with the other companies, it's just like there's no other company this year really kind of putting out a lot of different kind of merchandise, and especially nothing that kind of appeals to like a collector audience, because it's all one thing, like Mondo's doing one big statue. IDW Games, they're going to release that one game. They'll announce maybe their second game, but that's kind of really about it. Whereas Zen Monkey Studios across 2018, like we're probably going to see like 20-30 pins over the course of the year or something like that. Who knows what the full scope of their plan is. So that's definitely going to be a big thing to look out for. And fun to watch. I think the only thing with Zen Monkey Studios is just that they do need to expand how many countries they ship to outside of the US and Canada. They obviously cover most of the main ones, and that like they ship to Ireland, they ship to the UK, France, those type of places. But there's specific gaps. Like I think someone in my comment section once said that like they ship to like Denmark and some of those other Scandinavian countries, but not Sweden. And it's just like, why? And again, the list is kind of smaller than you'd expect. Like it doesn't feature certain countries for like almost like, why is that country left out? So that would be something that like they probably should expand upon, just because the Avatar fandom is such a international fan base. It's so passionate, like in terms of like the majority of people who like the show are like super into it. So it is this really hardcore fan base that likes the collectible stuff because we haven't got a lot of it. So that's the sort of thing they're dealing with here, and you probably should try to appeal to everyone possible. Moving on from Zen Monkey Studios, the other companies would be like Zwire Industries. They didn't really release a product in 2017. They obviously supplied the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Avatar piece, which was the sepia tone Chibi-Ang. But they never released it like officially themselves. It was kind of like through Nickelodeon as like their exclusive. So Zwire Industries basically haven't communicated with the fan base in like a year at this point. And I don't think I really have no confidence that they will have any releases in 2018, because it just feels like they're kind of done, and I don't know why. I'd love to know the story. Did it just not sell well? Could they not keep up with the demand, or what happened? But I'd be shocked if after taking this long off, just not saying anything, that they're going to come back. Similarly with like Nendoroid, which was one of the things that seemed like it was kind of starting something in 2017. We got the Korra Nendoroid released, but it doesn't feel like we're going to get any Nendoroids for 2018. Now, maybe it is just going to be this very kind of stretched out releases for them, where they'll do one Avatar or Korra figure a year, but there's been no real mention or plan or anything like that for it. So there's a disappointment. And then in the merchandise side of things, Dark Horse. Also, I think last year were kind of quite disappointing on this front, in that I think the only other non-direct like comic story content thing that they released was the Korra coloring book. So for this year, now that we have most of that stuff done, we have an Avatar and a Korra coloring book, Avatar and a Korra poster collection. What merchandise can you do going forward? Because it seems like they stopped doing statues, and then a lot of the other stuff that they released in the first couple of years of doing the comics didn't really take off, because it was all like it was almost like overly practical stuff of just like, here's like a lunchbox, here's like a shot glasses, it's pint glasses, that sort of things, rather than it being kind of like fun collectible items. So obviously they're a comic company, so they're a book company. The dream with Dark Horse would be that they announce something like an encyclopedia, a kind of in-universe kind of type thing like that, of like, here is a book that covers all the animals of Avatar. Here's a book that covers extra details on the martial arts forms of each of the elements, and like explains different moves to you, explains the different like special techniques of bending. Stuff like that. There's so many options if you kind of went down more the kind of resource type book, reference book style of things for Avatar. Whether you just go full visual dictionary type thing, full encyclopedia. You could do a kind of map book. That would be a really cool thing to do, of just, here's the different locations, make the names of each place a lot clearer to us, kind of really solidify, here are the different places that Team Avatar went to on their journey, here's where Korra went to, how they're different from here and now, and it would just give you this option to expand on bits when you need to, but just put out a book that adds to what's going on in the year. I think that would get people excited. As it is now, I don't think Dark Horse have anything else announced. I don't think they've announced any other merchandise at all. No statues, no figurines, no plushes, anything like that. I don't think it has actually been announced for next year. So we are in a bit of a weird spot in that it feels like the comics could be at their best next year, but Dark Horse isn't putting out, I suppose, the merchandise you'd expect them to put out with that in mind. And I think that's a little bit disappointing if they don't announce anything. There's obviously still a chance for them to do that. There's lots of time left, and even going into like midway through 2018, they could announce something for late in the year. So there's still obviously hope and some expectations about what actually happens. But that really is it. So unless another random company comes in, or some company that I never forgot about comes in and announces they're doing something, that's really what there is to expect in terms of merchandise. And that is, there's the big pre-order for the Mondo Statue, which is going to appeal to some people, but I think the price, how limiting it I think it's going to be for non-US customers with shipping, that's going to really limit down how many people buy it, and it's going to be just the most kind of, I think, niche, but the most collectible item of the year. You have the Zen Monkey pins, which are obviously the most, I think, accessible, kind of collectible, and probably will be the most interesting piece of merchandise to follow over the year. And then IDW Games, I think just the Kickstarter kind of showed you who's interested and who's not interested. So I think the big thing for 2018 will be what they do with their next game and how they go about announcing that. Other than that, it feels like Zwire Industries is just done as a company, and then Dark Horse doesn't really feel like they're really announcing much. I suppose the other thing would be Nickelodeon themselves, and regards to like DVD stuff. Given that one of the big things that happened in the last few weeks was that iTunes released Avatar in 1080p for the first time. Now feels like the right time to re-release Avatar on DVD and Blu-ray with much better quality. Obviously, Blu-ray for the 1080p, that's going to be fine. It'll be the first ever release of Avatar on Blu-ray. And then the Avatar DVD disc set has been in dire need of an update in terms of the transfer for a very, very long time. So both DVD and Blu-ray would be a big thing, because 2018 is going to be the 10-year anniversary of the ending of Avatar The Last Airbender. So it feels like a somewhat significant year of like it's been 10 years kind of in a way since the show ended. And just this, it should be somewhat of a celebration, so why not mark that anniversary with a Blu-ray set? That will be just something that we expect from Nickelodeon, a re-release of the show in the best quality as possible, and potentially, you know, the dream one would be, and also could you please release Avatar and Korra complete soundtracks? We have the book 1 soundtrack for Korra, but we don't have the soundtracks for anything else. Please, 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 Nickelodeon, make 2018 the year where you finally do that. And I think it will do well. Like, I think of anything in Avatar and Korra, the music, I think, is probably one of the most well-respected things. Because there are people who have issues with Avatar, you know, issues with Korra, both kind of series, and like how they kind of play off each other. But I think the music in both of them is this kind of universally loved thing. And the fandom wants that music. It feels like it's just a very obvious thing of like, absolutely, we should do it. But, you know, we're approaching, you know, 2018 is going to be 4 years since Korra ended, and there's still no sign of anything else. But that is the hope, the speculation, and hopefully 2018 should be a really, really good year. So I think it's shaping up overall well, in that it looks like we're going to get the most books we've got before, basically, in 2018, but it has the potential to have a lot more. Merchandise-wise, it looks like it's going to be a solid year because of Zen Monkey Studios, and then a lot's going to depend on how the other companies do with regards to announcing other stuff to really see if they fill out the year. Because as I said, like, it was really just like Zen Monkey Studios towards the end of the year, and then like the Korra coloring book this year as like the main merchandise, with the Nendoroid, of course. What will be the big things for 2018? So in the comments of this video, let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think the story content looks like so far? What's announced? What are your speculations for what the story content will be? And the same for the merchandise. What do you want to see, and what are your big things that you're hyped for with regards to what's already announced? But that's been the video. My thoughts on 2018 for Avatar and Korra. Thanks for watching this video, and bye.